Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sam coming back with another review. And this week we're doing a very highly anticipated movie. We're going to be talking about The Incredibles 2.
Did you wash your hands? With soap? Did you dry them?
What? Is this all vegetables? Who wanted all vegetables?
I did. So, are we going to talk about it?
What?
The elephant in the room.
What elephant?
Mom's new job.
Well, for us, it's been 14 years since the last Incredibles film. The Incredibles 2 picks up exactly where the last one left off by seeing the Incredible family fight the Underminer. But they also have to deal with the consequences of superheroes still being outlawed. And in the wake of that, this rich telecommunications company run by a brother-sister duo come to the Incredibles family and tell them that they have a plan for helping to change the law and get superheroes legalized. But they want Elastigirl to be sort of the face of the campaign. And while Mr. Incredible is feeling jealousy over that, Elastigirl goes out and tries to kind of save the day and make superheroes look good again, while also facing the new villain. What the fuck is his name? This is not going to go well. So while Elastigirl is out saving the world and giving superheroes a good name, Mr. Incredible is left at home to take care of the kids and dealing with the fact that he feels a little emasculated. So, like many people my age, that is the 20 to 30-year-old crowd, I was very excited for this film, and while I had my reservations, I became even more excited once I knew that Brad Bird, the original director and writer of The Incredibles, was coming back for this sequel, because he always said he never quite had the right idea that he wanted to tell. He never quite knew the story he wanted to tell to continue the franchise, but it seemed like he had found one, and I just could not wait to see what they come up with. The trailers were selling me. I was very excited for the film. While I can't come here and tell you that The Incredibles 2 is a bad movie, I can't say it's all that good either. It really sucks to say that, but I just have to be honest with how I felt while watching it. The Incredibles 2 fails to really live up to what the original did, and it fails to really be a good sequel as well. To get the positives out of the way, the animation, of course, is incredible. No pun intended. Oh, that's gonna suck. I'm keep doing this review. But yeah, the animation is great. I mean, it's Pixar. It's such an improvement over the last film, and yet it still keeps that sort of bouncy 2D Brad Bird style. And it looks really nice. It's very fun, and it leads to a lot of great sort of slapstick physical humor, but also the style, the sort of 60s, 70s spy aesthetic is just so, it's captured so well in this film, and it looks so good and is so well done. They really captured that while still making it feel, not necessarily modern, but not making it feel dated either, which I was really excited about. All the voice actors do a really good job. Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, of course, did a great job as the parents. Everyone's just doing a good job. The humor is really good. There's a lot of great lines of dialogue. There's a lot of great interactions between the family. They still kept up how realistic that family feels. And there's a lot of great physical humor. I wasn't quite expecting that, especially a lot involving Jack, since now he has these superpowers and the family's just learning about that. And it's so cool to see the stuff they do with him. There's a really great sequence where he fights a raccoon, which just had myself and many people in the theater just rolling around the aisles. It's a very funny scene. And the other heroes they introduce half of the film these other heroes that are going to help they're going to help with the campaign to legalize superheroes. And they all have really cool, interesting powers. The best one is the Void, who can open up these portals. They do really great, interesting stuff with that, but I wish they'd done a little bit more besides just keeping her as this underdeveloped side character. And well, coincidentally enough, that does lead into the main problems with The Incredibles 2, which it feels really underdeveloped, which is very weird to say since Brad Bird spent 13, 14 years developing this idea, but there just seems to be so much that the film wants to do and wants to say, but it never fully commits to any of it. The family never really develops further than where they developed at the end of The Incredibles. They are still the Incredibles family. The initial conflict is how he feels maybe emasculated and is jealous of Elastigirl's success and Elastigirl's and the kind of desire people feel for Elastigirl to be the face of this campaign, and he has to be the stay-at-home dad. They never really do anything with it. That plot line just sort of resolves itself and is never brought up again. It just sort of stops. Even though they did have some good development there and they could have really said something interesting with it, but they don't. Their daughter, she has a whole subplot involving trying to ask out a guy. The guy she asked out at the end of the first movie. Through events that I don't want to spoil, she has to keep trying to ask him out and keep trying to date him. And while there are like 1 or 2 scenes that kind of develop that further, once again, it just kind of is resolved by the end of the movie. It's just sort of, it's done. Hi, so this is Editor Sam. I just wanted to clarify the point that I'm trying to make here, because I'm afraid it comes off as if I'm complaining that these plot lines resolve themselves by the end. What I'm trying to say here is that it feels like a lot of these plot lines, like Mr. Incredible's emasculation and Violet's attempts to ask out a guy, go resolved without any further development or without seeing the conclusion. Like with Mr. Incredible, we see him complaining about this stuff, we see him dealing with raising these kids, we see the struggle he goes through to understand Jack's powers, to help Violet get a boyfriend, and to help Dash understand his homework, but they never really have a satisfying conclusion for it, and then they never really bring it up afterwards. It feels like there's a middle point to this story where they could have where they could have had some sort of agreement, or they could have come to an understanding. There is no final scene, there's no final speech like in The Incredibles that sort of all of the family kind of resolves their issues, comes together and fights the villain. The family just sort of fights the villain at the end. There's nothing to resolve. There's no conflicts between any of them that they come to terms with. The tension between Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible, or the one that Mr. Incredible feels towards Elastigirl, is never dealt with. It's just sort of assumed they go back to being a happy family. And that's what I was trying to say by they're just sort of resolved. I meant that they're resolved without the audience seeing it, or without having a real conclusion. These plot lines start, they're developed, and then they either drop off, or they're just resolved by the end in very unsatisfying and meaningless ways that were very disappointing, and it feels like the final sequence, which is very cool and is a really fun action sequence that is intense, was designed to sort of to distract us from the lack of a proper conclusion. Jack's powers aren't really developed further. Like, we see more of his powers, and we see a solution to controlling it, but they don't really do anything else with it other than just slapstick comedy, which, as I said, is funny, but I wish we could see more of it. Elastigirl being the face of this campaign and having more agency in her field and being taken more seriously than she used to is talked about, but never really solved or done with or explored. And I think one of the biggest missed opportunities is with the villain, who at one point has this speech about how people are relying on superheroes as escapists, clearly commenting on superhero films and how our society uses them as escapist media. Instead of having real experiences, how instead of living life, we're relying on TV shows and film and just other forms of media to live vicariously through these characters to have these experiences instead of experiencing them ourselves. And it is an interesting idea. While the villain is definitely going the wrong way to get that point across, it is a true point to a certain extent, and the film never engages with it. The film never tries to question it. It never says if it's good or it's bad. It's just that's what the villain thinks. And that really sucks, because the first Incredibles was so good at sort of taking these themes of family and of like fandom and the negative effects of that, and also sort of the logistics of superheroes and if they could exist in a real world and what the consequences would be, and really exploring that. And this film doesn't have any of that. There's nothing that's really explored or better than it should have been. It never takes the leap that The Incredibles 1 took, where that film, while yes, it is for kids technically speaking, it's still a really well-made film that wants to explore bigger ideas. And The Incredibles 2 just feels like they wanted to make a sequel because they knew it would make money. And so it feels kind of uninteresting and mediocre a lot of the times, despite the impressive animation, despite the great action sequences, despite the funny dialogue and the funny scenes. I I left the theater with this sense of just mundanity. I just kind of, the movie was over and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're done. Okay. And another problem with that is the pacing. The pacing doesn't allow us to take a moment and just sort of breathe. We get that after the first action scene, which is the highlight of the film, is the opening, which truly shows the connection between this family and their family dynamic as being superheroes, and is, you know, it's so well done. And then you have this quiet moment of them dealing with, well, we did this thing, but we're still outlawed. What do we do now? And that was a very personal, great moment. It gave the impression there was going to be potential of how they're going to build up the world. And it really was the best part of the film. And I was hoping we'd get more of that. I was hoping the movie would be more of that, and it simply wasn't. Because of that, we're left with a movie that is not poorly made, but is just poorly thought out. I don't want to say Brad Bird didn't know what he was doing or didn't have a clear idea of what he wanted. It just comes off that way. It comes off like there are a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of places you could go, especially in the modern landscape where superheroes are more prevalent than ever. I mean, watching that opening scene where the Underminer's big plan is to rob a bank, I just thought to myself, oh wow, we don't have that anymore. The villains we deal with in superhero movies and superhero media is taking over the world and these very big, grand plans. It's never just, oh, I'm eccentric and I want money. You know, we just can't go back to that. The Incredibles 2 never looks at that. It never tries to explore that. It never takes the modern context into consideration. And that really is the most disappointing part. And I feel like I'm maybe in the minority of this opinion. I know when I walked out of the theater, and most people I've talked to my age have loved the film and have just been so into it. And I can't tell if that's for nostalgia reasons or if they genuinely love it and they just see something I don't. I think that if you are a big fan of The Incredibles and you want to go see this film, you've probably already seen it, and I think you should. And I don't think it's going to be a waste of your time if you do see it. I think it is just disappointing that with something that has this much potential, with the only Pixar movie that truly deserved a sequel, it's sad to see them really squander that chance and make something that feels rushed and poorly thought out. All right, well, thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What did you think of the movie? Also, don't forget to go to the Commonwealth Times website to see more local VCU news and to read more of my past reviews. All right, well, hope you have a great rest of your day and take care. Bye-bye.